Hello and welcome to this edition of City Hall Insider. I'm Jim Marshall of the New Bedford Cable Network, and we are joined in studio today by Pamela Amaral Lima, who is the Director of the Council on Aging here in the City of New Bedford, and Melissa Ahesy. She is a licensed mental health clinician and dealing with aging population, I guess is the best way to put it. Thank you both for coming in.
Thank you for having us.
And I wrote Pam in because, you know, she's done the show before, but the one thing that I saw in the paper last week that I thought was interesting is people think they are invincible. Most Americans are unprepared for aging, studies show. So I thought that was interesting. I called Cynthia up, and Cynthia rolled Pam under the bus, which I knew I was going to get you anyway.
It's fine.
And I thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
The one thing that article pointed out that I thought was fascinating was with all the issues that they talked about here in the studies, it did say that a lot of the issues are falling on Council on Aging's, which is you. And I guess for both of you right off the start, you know, based on, this is what the study says. Are people prepared for getting older, I guess? And I guess it depends on how old you are, but are people preparing themselves for aging and, in a sense, retirement?
I think overall, yes and no. I think the functionality of the COA, the Council on Aging, always has to adapt to the ever-changing world. And right now, we do see some uncertainty due to inflation, due to some cuts to food programs and various things that I think right now probably older adults are a little uncertain. And I think that is the dilemma we're facing at the COAs, and we just have to make sure that we're providing services, resources to help older adults stay informed and to stay well, whether physically active and mentally active. So that's always our main goal.
And talking to you, Melissa, mental health was a big thing too. And we're not talking about people who are suffering from dementia or Alzheimer's. We're talking about, are people mentally prepared for getting older?
I think some are. I'm not sure about the numbers in that article. I think some are very prepared. I feel like older adults, like much older people in their 90s, seem to be more prepared than people in their 70s.
Which fascinated me when you told me that off camera.
Yeah.
But I mean, as you said, they grew up in a different time.
They did. I don't think they ever really got into the online spending. They clip coupons. I've heard add more water to the soup, you know, or we'll make do, because that's the way they grew up. I don't think people, besides that generation, I think they're the only generation who's a little bit more prepared than the people who are considered baby boomers who are around like 70 years old.
Yeah, like Melissa said, the older adults in their late 80s, early 90s have learned to adapt, and also the other, you know, ages as well. And the younger baby boomers, those who are just retired or partially working, who want to stay active, they're probably a little more tech savvy and are able to navigate through different resources a little differently. But, you know, we deal with the varying scenarios, and we're just here to help anyone, whether they just turned 60 or they're turning 100.
And it does sound like, in a sense, councils on agings, and obviously we'll use New Bedford, but you're a catch basin for everything. And the diversification that you have to have, like you said, it does change because we are living in a more tech-savvy world, or just technical world. Family dynamics, there's so many different things playing out right now that how often do you have to check, and I'm rhetorical, how often do you have to check what you're offering versus what people need? I mean, it could
Constantly.
change. I was going to say, it could change every day.
Yeah, it's a consistent, we always analyze and reevaluate things as needed. I think we receive so many different calls at Hillman Street, the administrative office. That's kind of like the catchment base for all of the calls. And then if we're unable to help an older adult, we'll find the resources, or we'll make a referral to the Be Hope program if someone needs some need a counselor to come in or meet with them, or they will do the initial assessment and they will move accordingly. Or if someone just needs a little bit little socialization, we'll refer them to the senior center and give them the calendar. Or if someone is looking for respite care, they're a caregiver, they feel a little overwhelmed, they have an older adult who needs structured programming, and then we would refer them to the social day program. If someone's looking for in-home services, we will refer them to our ASAP, Coastline Elderly Services, or if they need Meals on Wheels. So we're always adapting to the needs. Right now, there's a huge influx on insurance during open enrollment. So we're signing folks up to meet with our Shine counselor. So this is a great time for folks to reach out to the COA. We have a lot of programs in-house that can help older adults age in place.
So when we look at what they're talking about too, like the topics that they discuss: finances, people, are they prepared? Health, both physical and mental, caregiving, caregiving for your significant other as well, as you grow older together. Housing is a huge issue, and those are all things that kind of you're talking about too.
I think right now we're receiving a lot of calls about people who are feeling displaced, especially in the area. A landlord just bought a tenement home, they're increasing the rent, they cannot afford the new rent. So then we have to sort of, send them to the right resources to help them through that hurdle and just make sure that no one is displaced in the community.
Melissa, is this when you look at people preparing or getting, is it a mental issue? Is it a physical issue? I mean, how are people just ignoring it? Like, it's not going to happen to me.
And I feel like that's a tough question because some people are ignoring it. I don't feel like they're as worried as that article. I don't see that. And again, so what we do, actually, it's behavioral health outreach for aging populations. That's what BHOPE stands for. It's a grant that we have with the city of New Bedford, but we service from Marion to Seekonk, all these different towns. So we're constantly, we come across so many different situations. People who are homeowners are worried about the cost of fixing something. I mean, to just have an electrician, they're just hoping that, so they're quite resourceful and trying to find neighbors or loved ones. Luckily, there are a lot of good people out there who will help sometimes, or there are programs that I'm sometimes not aware of and that will reach out to someone like Pam. And then you have the people, I think the most at-risk people are the people who are renting, who are afraid of, this is my income, I had some wiggle room, now I don't have any more wiggle room, what happens if the rent increases more? I think that they're the most concerned population that we're working with within the aging population.
Your thoughts on that?
I would concur, especially with the rise in, homes are just selling at an all-time rate, and then a landlord we're seeing that within the community right now.
Yeah.
And different factors are attributing that. So I think renters too, and I think still, like Melissa said, we do have a few folks who own homes and then, struggle to pay the taxes or pay homeowners insurance, and then we do see the struggle, especially at the senior center. People are complaining that, the Social Security is just not covering all their needs. Some folks need to pick up a part-time job or a stipend job to have a little bit, not so much play money to go out to eat or go to the...
No, for basic necessities.
Just for necessity, just to live, to make ends meet.
Melissa, you were talking about, you were helping a couple of 70-year-olds looking for work because they had to go back.
Yeah, re-entering the workforce because at 72 or 73 years old, they just can't. And one happens to be somebody renting in a city, the other happens to live in a town with a single family home. And they're
what
two
are the
different...
hopes? What kind of jobs? Where, what kind of... that's
the thing. It's... grocery stores. It just depends. I know people who are in a field like journalism, and now the papers have gone under. I've heard that before in my course of being a therapist. The medical field is always helping. The thing is, when you're in your 70s and work in the medical field, to be on your feet so much is physically difficult. So what they need to do, what they can physically do, are two different things, and they don't always line up, and that's where the stress comes of what am I going to do. So
it does seem like mentality seems to be the biggest to me, what it seems like the biggest challenge that you're facing, in a sense. You know, are you prepared? But what are you doing too? I mean, you talk about, the last time you were here, you talked a lot about isolationism. And that was right after the pandemic when you came on, because I watched the show, and you talk about there were a lot of people out there that were very much isolated during the pandemic, and that interaction that wasn't taking place, and that I assume that the pandemic sort of exacerbated that even now.
Yeah, we saw an influx of older adults suffering with depression. That's why the Be Hope program is such a lifesaver for those adults. And also just getting older adults out in the community. Now that the senior center is thriving, we're back at Buttonwood Senior Center 5 days a week. We have different activities to meet everyone's needs. And if we don't have it, I love to hear what folks would like to see. So we try to get folks out in the community involved at the Senior Center Social Day programs or other resources in the community that fits their likes.
Melissa, you were talking off camera too that it's important, the socialization, because as you were saying, you know, being in a more technical world, there's less face-to-face time with people, and that is a huge issue on people mentally.
Yeah, I feel like people are feeling more alienated. Actually, I was speaking about a client was excited, she's not in her 90s, about finally seeing a train in her town. But she can't just go and talk to a person and buy a ticket and get on the train like she thinks. It's a totally different experience. Where I've taken the train and it was, okay, where do we park, and where, you know, everything's online. So that can be overwhelming, and it can really, people are feeling discouraged from doing a lot. I feel like just the idea that we don't have a teller and a drive-through anymore. A lot of elders have a hard time getting out of their cars. So the drive-through was a way for them to interact, to do their banking. That's another thing. And they sort of don't seem related, but they very much are, because it's everyday life. It's, you're going here, up there's a computer again.
I think that face-to-face interaction, that human interaction, is not there as much as it was before, especially since COVID. Whether we're, you know, I don't want to bring up AI or whatever it is, but I think just the fact that our older population, they like interacting with individuals. They like to get that reassurance that everything's going to be okay, or that explanation of how to use the train. I know I like an explanation.
And it makes them feel bad about themselves. It makes them feel like, I kind of don't belong here. Whatever
it's overwhelming.
happened to this, they've been dealing with so many losses, loss of abilities, loss of family members, but the loss of a generation is something that people don't talk about a lot, and a lot of that loss of a generation has to do with, so we're a quarter of that sadness has to do with every time they go, even going to the doctor's office, well, you have to go on, did you go online and do your paperwork? No, I just showed up to my doctor's appointment. So it's everywhere you go. Grocery stores, there's no, I mean, look at Target these days.
And then family dynamics. If you don't have a daughter or a son or a loved one or a good friend to help you through that hurdle like we're discussing, it's just overwhelming. So this is where we come in. You know, if you don't have that connection in the community, reach out to us and we can help you through that hurdle or any hesitation you have. And that's what we're here to do, is just break down any barriers to help older adults, you know, thrive in the community and within their home.
And on our end, saying you're not alone. You're not alone in your loneliness. I'm, you know, and I'll state my age, and I'll say, you know, I'm.
But is it hard to get people who are facing isolationism, and that's all they know right now? Is it hard to engage them or re-engage them somehow?
Well, that's where I was saying that if you kind of say, well, I'm this age and I feel the same way, just saying that you're not alone in the way you're feeling, that it's all moving very quickly, that, you know, it's
meet
become
them where they're at.
Very impersonal, and there are other we're all feeling the same way.
Yeah, we're all
or
struggling.
most of us. Yeah, we're all feeling a disconnect with all of the technology really speeding up in recent years.
You were talking about the last time we talked about how important it is for kids, or not necessarily kids, but family, nieces, nephews, whatever, to keep engaging with their elders.
I think family dynamics, I think when you see an older adult thriving, I don't want to say 100%, and again, I don't want to get into statistics, but they have a strong family base, whether or a community base. They're out there, there's social gatherings, they have social knits, friends, a group of friends. Those are the folks that we see thriving. Those are the folks we kind of see out in the community, out in the senior center, out in the social day programs. And luckily we have seen a big increase with folks coming out and gathering and building up those relationships again. We see a lot of new friendships being made every month at the senior supper or the senior breakfast or different special events that we have at the Buttonwood Senior Center. But again, the senior center is a great place for folks who don't have a strong family dynamic and who need that, interaction, that human connection, friendship. We're here to help with that.
And I've actually talked to my clients about everything that you just said, but also they'll say, well, I don't know anyone walking through the door. It's like the first day at school. Everyone's your age.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what they explain. And I'll say, play games. When you play bingo, when you end up interacting with people you don't even know because the common denominator is you're all playing a game. And then you start talking gradually. So you even offer that. I mean, you offer.
We do. We have game day on Thursday. And that's a great way, like Melissa said, to introduce folks who are a little timid or a little shy to reacclimate in a new surrounding or meet folks. So we offer a little bit of something. If someone wants to get their feet wet or just come out and introduce themselves again into the community and really break down those social barriers or isolation, we have a little bit of everything for someone to come out and feel comfortable.
I remember when my mother was in the nursing home and she was playing bingo, and I was visiting her, and it was the most cutthroat thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yes.
I mean, my mother's yelling at me because I'm not keeping up, and I'm like, oh my God, who is this woman? I mean, it made football look like easy. It's like, this is ugly.
Yeah, you don't mess with bingo.
I know,
yeah.
it was.
And we have a new bingo machine, and we have it on a 60-inch screen. So we're really attractive folks with bingo. Our numbers are increasing to pre-COVID numbers. And it's fun. And we usually kind of schedule our presentations around the bingo crowd on Wednesdays. So Wednesday will be the day you'll have different agencies come in and promote different things to help older adults stay informed, knowledgeable. And I have a few different scenarios. Different funeral homes will come in, different home health agencies will come in. And when I say funeral homes, I don't want to, it's not too, but like end of life planning.
Yeah.
What are your choices? Take the power in your hand and have and say on what you want done.
And that's one of the things that the article says. People don't have a plan. And then
they don't.
And then the kids are, what do you do?
They're unaware. They didn't have that uncomfortable conversation with their parent. And then you kind of lose the power in that.
I have a sense of humor, so if I'm comfortable enough with someone, I'll just say, "How long do you want to be here?" When they're late 80s, 90s, I'll go, "All right, what's your plan here?" And to broach the topic is difficult, and sometimes you get a little pushback, and you go, "Nope, not the topic. They're not ready for that." But it's
and then we'll have different.
That's one thing, I don't want to interrupt.
Sure.
That's one thing you do a lot, because we have, I know that Cynthia's called and said, hey, we've got this blank speaker coming down, can you record it? And staff has gone down to record that because the topic is important for everybody. And I mean, that is offered by you guys a lot.
We do, and we have a lot of elder law presentations, and with trust or estate planning. You want to leave what you worked so hard for in the right hands of your loved ones, and planning ahead will hopefully eliminate that whole process of going through probate. Of course, I don't really know the logistics of that, but that's what we do offer at the senior center. We get the professional in, and then you can take the time and ask those personalized questions that suits your scenario.
How important is we're talking about, because it does seem that the mental health component is so important to this, but how important is the physical health?
Crucial.
Because I would think that obviously they go hand in hand. If you're able to do more, I do races and I see 80-year-olds running still, and it's amazing because they're smoking me. So it's like, how important is that to what we're talking about? Is getting, and I'm not talking about people running, but you got to get on your feet.
Well, I'll let Melissa talk about the mental benefits with the other things, but I just want to promote that we do offer physical activity 5 days a week, several classes each day, varying from chair yoga, universal yoga, strength and conditioning, Zumba, line dancing. So there's something at each physical level. So if someone just wants to start off slowly, I would probably recommend chair yoga. If someone wants something with a little more high intensity, then chair Zumba. But there's a direct correlation with physical health leading to better mental health.
There's definitely, I'll start with this. There's a lack of information on how important nutrition is.
Yeah, that's a good point too.
That's one of something that I notice all the time, that people really don't understand how something like almonds and blueberries and salmon and these things are actually very, very important for mental health, especially in aging. Especially with, I've taken a 7.5-hour course on Alzheimer's, and they'll talk about these studies and these medications. It's all about medication, and at the very end, you go, so what's going to help this? And it's nutrition and exercise. Another thing that's not being treated as much as or paid attention to at people's doctor's appointments are the serotonin. We can lose up to 50% of our serotonin by the time we are of a certain age, 70s, 80s, toward the end of your life. And that is what is in charge of everything, including your motivation to exercise, to show up at Council on Aging. So the brain is sort of not being treated at all. They kind of look here and down, and it's medication. And I'm generalizing, but it's sort of a frustration
But
of
that's
mine.
usually the first round of
I
treatment.
shake my head and I go, oh, you have this medication. And did they talk about your serotonin? Did they talk about your motivation level? They do address memory, but there's not much you can do besides getting a nutritionist, and then they're not referred to the nutritionist because that can help.
And we've had a nutritionist every Wednesday for a nutrition clinic to really promote which foods to eat and the parts of aging, and like blueberries, eating more vegetables. Certain foods will help with cognitive, reduce cognitive decline, keep your mental alertness high. So there are varying aspects to that, and we have that too.
You got to work your brain.
Yeah.
You still have to work your
You have
brain.
to stay active.
Psychology I came across an old Psychology Today article recently, and there was like a big quote in the middle that said, if nutrition and and exercise were in a pill form, it would be the most powerful, most popular pill on the planet, because it's so effective. It would just change people's lives.
I saw this,
but it's not.
I saw this story on the news, which I thought was fascinating. It was like an 80-plus-year-old guy who still plays softball every week.
Wow.
And, a couple times a week, but he's on a team, and the team is younger, but he's still on the team, and he still hits the ball and stuff like that.
Wow.
And it's just, but the team can't live without him. They're like, he's such an inspiration to us, and he can't live without them. But it kind of goes back to what you were saying, both of you were saying, about that community. Like, he needs that, and they need him too, because I think it gives them, life doesn't end. You can still do what we love to do.
And that's what we see, the motivation, the morale, folks lifting each other up. At senior center, senior suppers, you'll see 90-year-old folks get the younger, older adults up there dancing. And they're the ones that really, they're the leaders and really helping. This is where you can be if you just, be a part of the community and really take care of yourself.
Because you're right, in a sense, you are looking at, and I guess I'm just going to say 60 versus the 90. There's a 30-year age gap, but for both your standpoints, the mental on your side and everything they're at different places still in their lives.
Yeah, very, very different. A lot of my clients' children are 68, 70 something years old. And I even forget that. They'll say, oh, my daughter, and I'm picturing somebody much younger, and then they'll say their age, and I'll go, oh, that's right.
Yeah, it can be.
Yeah, so that's a dynamic that's interesting, where they're both aging together.
They are, and that's what we're seeing more and more at the senior center. It's the younger senior with the older seniors, but they just intertwine so well, and it's just a great morale at the senior center.
Yeah.
And out in the community.
We got 4 minutes left, but so the difference between adult social daycare, which you have at the Rosemary Tierney Center, you have at Brooklawn, versus the senior center at Buttonwood, For people who don't know, what's the difference between those?
I think social day is more for folks that need a little bit more structured care. Maybe older adults with mild cognitive impairment, those with maybe some physical limitations. And social day runs Monday through Friday, 8 to 2:30. So they're there, they receive breakfast, lunch, and afternoon snack. We offer different exercise classes, different activities, but there's constant supervision. Where at the senior center, it's for older adults who usually drive themselves or use public transportation, go in and out, pick the activity they want, and usually leave for the day. We don't really have too many seniors that'll stay there for the whole day. Like when I first started 12 years ago, a lot of them just come in and out. I want chair Zumba, I want chair yoga, I want to play rummy cue, Mexican train, or mahjong, and then they'll leave for the day. But social day, we do offer 2 sites, one at the Brookline Community Center and one at the Rosemary Tierney. And it's different varying needs, but it's really for the older adults that just need somewhere to be and somewhere to feel welcomed in a safe and nurturing environment.
Are you seeing, and I'll ask this for both of you here before we wrap it up, are you seeing an increase in your case, people going to the senior centers or adult day? Is there, the population quote is aging, and I don't know that, but that's what they say. Are you seeing an increase in people, and are you seeing an increase in people going to you for mental health issues or concerns?
I see an increase with folks wanting to stay at home. I think a lot less folks are going to long-term care facilities. They want to stay active in the community, and they want to age in place in their own home. So I think social day is a great resource for folks who are able, so their daughter or their son, their caregiver, they're able to go to work knowing that their loved one is cared for, and then once they leave work, their loved one will come home. Where if they didn't have that resource, maybe they would have to go into assisted living or a long-term care facility. So that's what I've been seeing an increase.
I definitely see an increase in counseling being more accepted with the older populations. I've been a therapist for 21 years, and I definitely remember a lot more skepticism amongst the population. And it's interesting just talking about this. I never really thought about it until right now that we just don't get that. When our first phone call, they'll say, oh yes, okay, a counselor. And they wouldn't even say the word counselor. They just call me, oh, the girl who comes and talks to me.
Yeah, there's not a stigma anymore since COVID.
It's a lot more socially acceptable, which is a great thing for the population.
Pam, for you, for people who want to get in touch and talk to you, what's the best way to do it?
I think the main COA administrative number, 508-991-6250. Call us with any of your needs, and we'll try to help you, and if not, we'll lead you in the right direction.
Melissa, for folks who might want to talk to you, what's the best way to...
We would be talking to Cynthia Walquist. Do you have that number?
Well, no, just
they can call the Council on Aging, and then we can refer them. Because usually it's an agency that will refer an older adult in need of this service.
Yeah, Cynthia is our director, and she works closely with Pam.
Yeah.
It's great seeing you again.
Likewise, sir. Thank you for having me.
It is nice meeting you.
Nice
Lots
to
of
meet you.
information. I hope it's helpful for people. That's really what the whole point was. It's not scary, but you do have to prepare.
Yeah, and that's our goal. We're out.
I guess a game plan. You got to have something. You just can't wing it. You just got to have a game plan. But I don't think it's as scary as it should be if you just do basic stuff and stay healthy. Keep moving. Yeah. So that's going to do it for this edition of City Hall Insider. I'm Jim Marshall of the New Bedford Cable Network. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you again soon.